Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 6th episode of the Wally Pod, a show where I interview my peers who are embarking on their careers in areas from investment banking to software engineering to entrepreneurship and more. We explore the lessons they learn navigating college, their plan for future success, and the views they hold on the future of the world as the next generation that is taking the reins. Subscribe to join me weekly for informational and motivating interviews. If you've enjoyed the podcast so far, I'd really appreciate it if you could forward it on to one other person that you think would enjoy it as well. Now, in this episode, we talk with my friend Olli Kangas. Olli is from Helsinki, Finland, and the two of us met on our semesters abroad in Hong Kong. Olli has an incredible story from serving in the Finnish military to his many internship experiences, including Accenture, Pwc, and Boston Consulting Group. He shares his perspective on the United States, the Finnish work and education culture, and his love for sailing, including stories from his recent 3-week trip at sea. Olli offers excellent life advice and career advice for anyone and has a unique perspective for many of the Wally Pod listeners to hear. So without further ado, here's our conversation. Well, Olli, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here. And it's great to hear your voice, man, after such a long time.
I know, it's been a long time. And I am really excited to have you on because, for one, you have such a unique perspective from the other people that I've had on the podcast, being in Finland, and also your story is so unique, and you've done such a wide variety of things that I think people will be really interested in. And for people who don't know, we met on a semester abroad in Hong Kong. And before we get into your university experience and your required military commitment, can you tell everyone briefly about growing up in Finland and what your interests were growing up and what the education system is like there?
Sure. So actually, it's a good year to be a Finnish person because I think we have been all over the news also in the US. So growing up in the happiest country in the world definitely hasn't been always just, circus and big smiles everywhere. So Finnish people in general are not maybe, happy, but we're content. So we're actually content of what we have. So I think growing up in the Helsinki area has been really nice. I've been playing football, so soccer for you guys for like 10 years, being the same school for the first 9 years, being kind of really nice, the same group of people growing up. After that, it gets a little bit more competitive here. So you have to make kind of the tough choice of if you want to apply to a more academic high school or go to a more vocational, like craftsman education. I don't know if you have the same kind of setup, but for us, it's kind of the first big milestone that you have to have really good grades to get into good high schools.
So what age around is that?
So you're, I think, like 16 or something like that, 17.
Okay.
So so we start school when we're like 7 years old, so relatively late, I would say. But yeah, I think that was kind of the big milestone. I was a little bit of a geek myself, so I got into the geek high school, you could say. I had to travel like 40 minutes from my home, but it was really nice to kind of spend time with similar-minded people. So in the geek high school, there was us, a bunch of geeks, and it was a great place to kind of go through the hardships of teenage years. And the high school is like 3 years, and then after that, is the second big milestone, applying to higher education.
It's such an interesting system because I think a little bit in the US it's like the private system with people having to apply to those schools, but most people go to public school. What do you know the percentage roughly of people that choose vocational school versus the educational route?
Yeah, I think it's like around in like the whole of Finland, 40% take the more academic route, and then like 60% go to kind of more towards a specific jobs, like being a chef or something like that. In Helsinki area and in a kind of more urban environments, it's a little bit higher percentage. So I would say from my friend group and my class, maybe 70% went to the more academic one.
It seems like a pretty big decision to make at such an early age. Do you think that's a good system, or do you think it might lead to people being stuck in kind of their family situation?
Yeah, I think there's been a lot of discussion lately about that because, of course, education in Finland is free. So in all the different stages, it's completely free, and even in the university stage, you actually get paid to study. So the government gives you a monthly grant of like, I don't know, 500 euros for food and your living, and then you can also get this interest-free loan around 650 euros per month that you can then use to have a little bit more lavish lifestyle if you want. But yeah, I think it's been a discussion lately that is it enough that it's free? Should there be more? Because the statistics show that even though it's free and there's like a really good student guidance program, that even kids from different backgrounds get really kind of pushed into the academic route. Even if their parents are not academic, your kind of teachers really boost you towards that if you show interest. But the statistics still show that it's highly correlated. If your parents are academics, you should also be, or you will be. If not, it's not always the case.
Yeah, it's an interesting problem, and just interesting to hear about how different education systems work.
Yeah.
So out of high school, well, you guys call it high school there too?
Yeah, it's like upper secondary school. I don't know.
Okay. Well, out of upper secondary school, you got into the number one business school in Finland, Aalto University. And so you had only one semester of classes before you ended up leaving to go to your military service. Why don't you talk about that first, just entering into university and then having to leave right away?
Yeah, it's definitely a weird experience also in Finland to do it in that way, because it's really common for people to have at least like 1, 2, or even 3 gap years before they start their university tracks. So often people apply to the schools many times. They probably don't get in the first time. They don't even probably want to get in that badly, or they really want to just have a gap year and they just go to the exam and not do that well. But I think for me, I had a good kind of role going on after the high school ending, final exams of high school. So I felt that I was on a good roll. So I just kind of kept going and studied onto the kind of the finance and the business entry exams and got in. I was definitely the most junior person in my class, because most of the guys especially were 2 to even 3 years older than me. And usually you also do your military service before you start your university. So that's kind of the usual way to do it. But I just felt that, hey, I was on a good roll. I got the spot. I felt that I really just want to enjoy the student life for a bit before I have to go. So I ended up staying the kind of the autumn semester and then shipping off to boot camp in January.
Yeah, so tell us about that. It must have been a pretty abrupt change to go from right to university and then leaving after a few months.
Yeah, definitely. I think it was really ruthless because, you know, you've just met these wonderful people. You have these new friend groups that you love hanging out with. You know, the university parties, they're epic here. So then all of a sudden you have to buzz your hair off and go to the military. It felt so bad. You know, I was kind of trying to stay motivated because I know that it's only like 9 months or 12 months. But, you know, dude, the contrast between was just too much for a while. But, you know, you get kind of, you get used to it. And after, you know, a couple of days, you really kind of start to dig your, I don't know what you call them, kind of like housemates in the military, the ones that you shared your bedroom with, the 11 different guys. So you kind of form this new bubble that you're in, and then you just kind of enjoy the ride.
And so you said most people will do that in their gap year or two before going to university.
Yeah, definitely. So even if you get a spot in the university, plenty of people then kind of postpone starting their studies and then kind of just go to the military first.
Yeah. So going back or thinking back, if you were to do it again, do you think that was the right decision for you? Do you wish you would have just waited until after you did that, after your military service to join?
Yeah, well, actually, I think it was a really good thing that I did it this way, even with all the hardship, because now I had the opportunity to actually copy the kind of best practice that my friends kind of gave me, because the ones that I kind of got to know in my first semester before I went out, they of course advanced with their studies and they advanced with their careers and they started getting their first internships, and I really kind of used all of that information to my benefit. So those guys helped me a lot in the beginning to actually kind of choosing courses, choosing majors, and then applying to kind of my first internships then behind them in their footsteps.
Yeah, I could see how that could be super helpful.
Yeah, and also I got to do like a freshman semester twice because I came back for the kind of the autumn semester again after 9 months in the military, and I got to do it all again. So it was a good experience that way as well.
Yeah, actually thinking about it, that sounds pretty great. You get a second chance at meeting new friends, and
Yeah,
you've already gone through the experience once. But I don't want to totally gloss over just your experience in the military. Can you tell everyone what you did and maybe some of the biggest takeaways you had from that experience?
sure. I mean, it was also a really good thing that I started the business school before I went in. Also, kind of for the jobs that I was able to get during the military service. So how the system works is that you have like the 2-month basic training. For me, it was the coldest winter in 50 years. So it was a good time to be in the coastal parts of Finland, having the sea breeze in your ears and minus 30 Celsius. But it was a good time. And after 2 months, because I had the business school in my bio, they actually kind of picked me out and said that, okay, Olli, I think you would be more suitable for something more intellectual than just roam around in the forest. And they got me to apply to this kind of more administrative role and actually got the job. So I then after 2 months, I got shipped to Helsinki city center, where the kind of the Finnish Defense Command is. I would like to, compare it to Pentagon, but it's not. It's not really the same caliber, but the same kind of
Sounds
function.
cool.
Yeah. So then I kind of will continue working for 7 months there. I still kind of lived in the barracks close to Helsinki. I just kind of commuted every day to the Finnish Defense Command. We had all the different kind of usual stuff as well. We woke up 5:30, had a lot of physical exercise, some gun drills, but most of my days I spent working on like an admin position for these digitalization projects that the military was having.
Mm-hmm. What's like the perception of the military in Finland? What do people think about it? What do people think about serving in it?
Yeah, it's because it's been kind of a big thing for since we were independent 100 years ago, or we got our independence 100 years ago. It's like all guys go there, and when you're like a teenage guy, all the kind of the old lads are always telling this military service, especially in the saunas, you hear all these kind of horror stories, but also the good stories. And it's kind of a common factor between all the men in Finland.
Mm-hmm.
And even today, I think like 75 to 80% of guys go through it. So it's actually a really high percentage. So I think like people perceive it pretty well as you have to do it, but you can also enjoy it, and at least you have good stories to tell about it afterwards.
I feel like there'd probably be a big common respect for it, just because so many people have to go through it, and
yeah,
you all share the experience. Do you have any specific just life takeaways or important things that you think you learned during that experience that have carried on to your life?
Yeah, sure, certainly. I think like 2 really big things come to my mind. I think the first one is that you can really get along with any kind of people. So even though you have been growing up in Helsinki area, even though you had been growing up in a posh suburb, there you're all just, bold-headed guys. Your background doesn't matter, and you still get along. You still make great friends from really different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that I really kind of cherish to this day as well. And also the second thing is that you're, as a person, as a kind of human being, you're able to endure a lot. I think that's a really big takeaway. That's something that we kind of come back to often with the guys. Like if the times are miserable, if you have a really high fatigue, even at the workplace, you can always say that, hey, we had it worse back then.
Yeah, I think those are good takeaways for sure.
Yeah.
So you ended up coming back, like you said, you had another kind of fall semester of school. What was that year like for you? I know you were very involved on campus. Is that when you started getting involved in different organizations?
Yeah. So I think like this was the big year for me, where I also like glowed up a little bit personally. So coming kind of back, knowing all the how things work in the university, but still being kind of a false freshman, I really got to kind of get involved in the kind of the best things, because I've heard from my friends that, okay, you should do this, and okay, this is the party you want to be organizing, and this is the club that you want to be joining. So I did all that, and I got involved in almost anything you can imagine. We had a really kind of vibrant student life here. It has long traditions. Our school is like 120 years old, so it's like really kind of long traditions. Also a pretty wealthy student foundation behind it. So we have all really good party places in the downtown Helsinki, where we own a 8-story building in the Helsinki city center, where most of our parties are hosted. So it's a really vibrant scene, and I gotta just fell in love with it at the first sight. I started organizing parties in kind of after the autumn semester. So I got into the board of the student association, who hosts more of these rousier events, you could say. So I think in the first year being active on campus, I organized around 40 different events, while also, of course, doing my studies really well. If my mom is listening, of course, yeah, my studies were just fine back then.
Of course. And it's such an interesting dynamic you've told me about between the companies that are recruiting and just the university, because there's not too many universities in Finland. And so there's not a huge net for these companies to try to capture students from. Do you want to just briefly touch on kind of the dynamic in the recruiting process?
Yeah, I think it's something while I was also really keen on going to this particular business school, because it's situated in Helsinki, and because Finland as a country, most of the economy is really concentrated in the Helsinki area. And if you are able to study in the number one school in Helsinki, also the number one school in Finland, you're really kind of the target school. So there is no other. So the dynamic is that all of the major companies are situated right next door, and they are kind of really keen on getting the top talent. So we are kind of after the first year, already kind of in the second year, there's like so many different dinners, excursions, these different kind of events where we go sailing with the companies or stuff like that, where they really kind of try to woo you over and apply, because especially the finance class, which is again the hardest major to get in the school, it's only like 60 people per class. So that's a relatively small pool of talent to recruit from, and everyone wants to tap in on that.
Sounds like a pretty nice position to be in. I think it's probably not even similar to the Ivy Leagues in the US. I think it's probably so concentrated in Finland. It sounds like you guys get put up on a little pedestal.
Definitely. And especially like because the Finnish whole culture, or the whole working culture is so much more relaxed. So also the events can be really relaxed as well. So we have had events where we just all go to an open bar sauna and just, chat with the consultants, or usually almost every time the kind of more formal dinners end up to a karaoke bar where we just spend the whole night singing together with the company representatives. So it's a really good culture where you can actually get to know the consultants. You actually really get to know the companies and their culture as well.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Do you want to just go in and talk about, as far as I know, kind of your first experience with the company at Kone Corporation?
Yeah, I mean, if you kind of look at my background, since the military, I've been actually constantly working alongside my studies for practically the entirety of my studies. So ranging from maybe, 10 hours a week doing some recruiting. So I've been a recruiter at first. Then I got these just ad hoc gigs at, for example, Kone, whereas, doing some Excel analysis, setting out some reports like twice a week, this kind of stuff that you can actually really do alongside your studies really well. But I think the first career steps that I did was after my first year. I had just gotten into the finance program. All the doors to these different excursions and dinner had just opened. And because of my more senior friends from the first semester that I was in the business school, they really kind of told me that you should go to all the dinners really early on. Even though you're not applying yet, you should go there and meet the companies and meet the people behind them, so you kind of feel of what you actually want to do. So I did that, and I think the first break that I did, what I was just being a little bit cocky, I applied to all the different big three consulting companies in the beginning of my second year. So as a relatively junior person, I felt that, okay, hey, what do I have to lose? If they even read my application, that's a big win. Luckily enough, I actually got an invite from Bain & Company for an interview, and I had actually been prepping with one of their consultants a little bit before it. So okay. He was actually someone from my student association. He was working there, and he heard that I'm applying. So he kind of groomed me a little bit for the process. Still, it was my first proper interview process, and I can't say that it went too well, but at least I got to break the ice and get the feel how it works. McKinsey also were super nice, that even though I was a really junior, they actually called me. So the people from HR called me and were like, okay, hey, really cool seeing you apply. Maybe after a year, we're really keen on hearing from you again. But they actually took the time to call me, and I felt that was really special. BCG, on the other hand, just called out, rejected me. But luckily, that wasn't the story after a year. At this time, I felt a little bit humbled. I learned my place a little bit. Took case in point in my hand and actually now did the work. So kind of in the mid-second year studies, I really prepped with my friends. I did a lot of meetings with different consultants from the companies. I had my mentor, who was actually a McKinsey consultant at the time, and he was doing this consultant prep for me. So for the second kind of application round that we have in Finland, which is in kind of January, February, I was more prepared, and then I actually hit the jackpot, and I got in I actually got like 3 offers for internship, and I was able to move my studies around in a way that I got to accept them all. And those were Neste, which is one of the biggest companies in Finland, like an industrial player. And then there was Accenture Strategy, which is kind of the strategy arm of Accenture here. And then PwC, and especially the deal strategy team there, which actually are doing like commercial due diligences only. So I had a really internship-packed year then after that.
When you're talking about your second year, are you talking about the year directly after your military experience then?
No, I mean, it's like when I kind of started as a freshman again, I think that was again my first year.
Okay, that was your first.
So the first semester doesn't count.
Yeah. Okay. Just to be clear on the timeline. And so
Yeah.
the year after that, you were doing all this recruiting. That's so interesting that you kind of locked them all down at the same time. That's
and
like
that's
that's
pretty
not
uncommon here as well.
really okay. Because I was gonna say
So
I've never heard of someone doing that.
usually people do like one internship a year, because then you can kind of move around your studies a little bit, so that doesn't kind of ruin your curriculum. But for me, because I had the extra semester, I was a little bit ahead of my studies, so I was actually able to take a gap semester, and just do these 3 internships during the summer and the fall time.
Okay.
And I just skipped school entirely.
Okay. And do you want to talk about your experience with them? You started at Neste, and then you went to Accenture, and then PwC.
Yeah, I mean, it was really great that my first internship was at Neste strategy team. So Neste is in kind of renewable oil business. So they do the kind of all kinds of renewable fuels, renewable plastics out of kind of waste and residues. And it's a big market right now. So the strategy team, they were just doing kind of this long-term 2030 strategy, which I got really highly involved with. And being my kind of first real analyst job, oh man, my manager, he was so nice to me, even though I kind of was still learning the basic PowerPoint tips and tricks that you usually learn in your first consulting job. He had the patience to show me, okay, this is how you use these shortcuts, and this is how you align the boxes. So I'm really grateful for my manager there and the chief strategy officer there for kind of really taking me under their wing and teaching me how things work. So yeah, I mean, it was a great experience to kind of dip my toe a little bit, get the first experience done in a really comfortable environment. Then came the strategy analyst job at Accenture Strategy, where I kind of first got the kind of whole client relationship. I kind of now saw how is it to be actually a consultant going to the client and having these deliverables and a really strict timeline. It was a really good experience. The strategy team in Helsinki is quite small. So Accenture, I think in whole of Helsinki, they have a little under 2,000 consultants, but the Accenture strategy team is only around 50 people. So it was really cool. You get to know almost everyone in the house. And I got to see 2 really interesting projects during that time. Then came the PwC internship in October. It was really intense. You know, there was a lot of deals going on back then. So I was doing a couple of weeks of really intense commercial due diligence on one deal, then really kind of just jumped into another. I got to see, I was there like 2.5 months or something like that. And I got to see so many different industries, saw so many different weird deals going on. I mean, the team does deals in an environment around 50 to 100 million euros. And you can really fit a lot of weird companies in that category.
Mm-hmm. And were they mostly Finnish companies, or were they all over Europe?
They're mostly Finnish. So it's often there's an international buyer, for example, a private equity player who's interested in expanding to Finland, or on the other hand, there might be a Finnish private equity selling a Finnish company, and we're doing like a vendor due diligence for them. But it's mostly in Finland, yeah.
Okay. I mean, that is such a unique position to be in, to kind of back to back go to a different internship. What was your mindset like going into Accenture and then PwC? You kind of got to have a fresh start, I guess, at each of the companies and take your experience from the past one to improve
definitely.
on.
Yeah, I would say that at PwC, people didn't have to show me how to align boxes anymore. So
yeah.
I think I really got the hang of it at Neste already in the first one. So then at Accenture, you know, there was a little bit learning curve in the whole client relationship thing. But then at PwC, I think I was really comfortable with the job, and I really had built like a confidence in my own abilities as well. so I could be much more relaxed, kind of really open up to the team and be more myself at the workplace as well. So you're not like too careful on what you say or what to do, because you actually kind of believe in your abilities and you can just relax and enjoy the ride a little bit more.
Yeah, definitely. And so you go back to school, and this is the second time you've had a major disruption in your studies. At this point, was it frustrating at all for you to kind of have to leave friends for so long and go back, or what was the thought there?
This is again the one happy thing that you have when you study in Helsinki and work in Helsinki. So you're actually able to go to all the parties. I was also organizing a lot of parties at the same time. So I think one like really good memory was I was organizing this international hiking trip while I was working as Accenture. So it was like quite the experience of taking 50 people to actually northern Sweden for a week-long hike, organizing all the logistics while actually working in the Accenture office in Helsinki. But yeah, I've actually I was able to really kind of keep up with friends for the entirety of the time. Maybe at PwC, sometimes the hours were a bit longer, so there was a gap, but at least the weekends, you get to go to the party building and see all your friends. But actually, yeah, after this stint of 3 internships back to back, I left to Hong Kong. So it was a really kind of long-awaited holiday for me to go to exchange, because I don't know if you remember that I was pass or fail in Hong Kong. So I had a relatively chill approach to the studies there, and got to enjoy Hong Kong maybe more than some of you guys did.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't have that luxury, and I know you had a great time. We had a great time there. What were some of the highlights of Hong Kong and study abroad, and what advice do you have for people who are lucky enough to go abroad on just how to have a good abroad experience?
I think it all boils down to really experiencing the country you're in. So I think at first I thought that, okay, Hong Kong is a major hub. It's really easy to travel everywhere from there. And I heard a lot of things from my friends back in Singapore that, every weekend we go to this country and have these trips. But actually what I ended up doing in Hong Kong, and what you as well really embrace, I think, is actually Hong Kong. It's a super unique experience to live in a country. You can always go as a tourist to different places. You can do that later as well. But I felt that actually living in Hong Kong, actually forming the routines. Okay, so every Tuesday we go to this bar, and every Wednesday we go see the horse races.
Yeah.
Those are the kind of things that don't happen when you're just traveling. So I actually like embracing the country or the city that you're in and trying to be a local. That's something that I really was happy to do. And the other thing, especially in HKUST, there was a really good choice of different courses. So even though I was a finance major, I was able to study sustainability. I was able to study technology. I actually only had I think one course from the business school during my whole exchange. So I really kind of enjoyed studying different things. It felt super refreshing, and that actually really highly affected my decisions on what I wanted to study in the masters. So also, actually, just a point is that in Finland you do a 3-year bachelor's, and then you do actually a back-to-back masters. So people don't have like a gap in between. So I actually ended up switching my major to management and doing a lot more strategy and sustainability in my masters now.
Okay.
Because highly because of the experience in Hong Kong.
And we'll get to that in a second, but there's a couple things in between. And also, I definitely totally agree. I don't want to totally stop talking about Hong Kong because it was a great experience, and I think you hit the nail on the head for what I also experienced. I think people should. I've heard a lot of my friends come back and say they wish they spend more time in the country they were studying abroad in, and I think that's a mistake a lot of people make, and it is just very special to be living on the other side of the world from your original home and actually getting to experience that. So I totally agree there. And after Hong Kong, I think you had a couple more. You had an internship at Kone, and then you ended up at BCG the following fall. Do you want to talk about your summer right after Hong Kong?
Yeah, so it was actually when I was working for PwC before Hong Kong, when I then tried my wings the second time for all the big three consulting firms. I ended up applying to all three and got an offer from Boston Consulting Group, which is also the biggest in Helsinki. So BCG is actually, I think, bigger than the competitors in combined in Helsinki.
Okay.
So I had a lot of really good, I've heard a lot of good things from my friends from there. So I was really excited to join them. Before them, I also interned at Kone, like you said. Kone is a company that I think most of you guys have used their products probably today. Kone is the largest manufacturer of escalators and elevators in the world. So they actually move, I think it's 1 billion people a day. Wow. So every day, 1 billion people use their products. So I again got to join the strategy team of one of the coolest companies in Finland. Escalators and elevators. That's super sexy, I know. But they're really the world leader in that. And it was a really cool experience to see kind of the strategy team of a different industrial player. Because there's always differences, and you get to see a different industry. And especially for the escalator and elevator industry, they're in a really big, I wouldn't say like turmoil, but in a really big pivotal point, because everything is getting high tech right now. So at the time, we were just preparing a launch of this whole new generation of products, which are like super high tech, a lot of sensors, cloud connected, building all this data of people flows in buildings. And they actually just announced it, I think, this spring. But it was a lot of buzz going on there, and it was really cool seeing such an old industrial giant going digital and going technological. So I really loved that experience. Then BCG. So I think something that I had been dreaming of for a long time. A lot of preparing, a lot of experience that I had really kind of built up this. And I joined them in November, and I immediately got assigned to a really interesting project, actually abroad. So the BCG in Nordics is basically one office. So all the different Nordic cities are highly connected. So my first project was in Sweden. So I commuted every week to Sweden. I spent the week in the client site, and then always came back for the weekend. And I think that was a really good way to experience what it actually would be if you joined the company whole time. It was really cool seeing how they work and how the whole big international machine works there. All the kind of the tools that you have in hand were nothing that I had seen before. Of course, I had a lot of experience before the internship, but I think with the kind of the new support and the really great teammates that I had there, I was able to again bloom up a little bit, and I got to test myself in, I would say, kind of the most difficult environment or most challenging environment that you could do, or the most challenging job that you could do as a first graduate, and I still handled it. I feel that I handled it really well, and I even enjoyed it at the same time. So I think that was a really, really good experience to me. And after the 3 months that I stayed there, I actually got a return offer and signed it. So
congrats to that.
Thanks. Feels really good. And there's a bunch of my friends also going to BCG when they graduate. So it's going to be an office filled with friends.
Oh,
super excited to see that.
That's going to be fun.
Yeah.
You obviously were looking forward to BCG for a while. Was it everything you expected? Were there any big surprises for you?
I feel like having a lot of friends go through the internship program before and hearing their experience, I pretty well knew what I was expecting. I think even in good and bad, all the things that I was expecting came through. So I think the good that I was really looking forward to, traveling, seeing international clients, working in a really international environment, those all came through, and the projects were really top class that I got to be involved in. And with my background, even though I was only an intern, I feel that the managers had a good eye and were able to give me a little bit more responsibility than usual. So I really got to test myself, and I was super excited about that. But also, I think what I was expecting were the long work hours and the really hectic traveling schedule and stuff. That also came through, and it was also a good experience to see how I can handle that, and is that something that I actually want to do long term.
And what were your thoughts there? It's obviously a stressful job. A lot of people know at the big three consulting firms, you're, like you said, you're always traveling, and it can be kind of an inconsistent schedule, I think, with the hours you're working. Did you enjoy it enough? I mean, you obviously enjoyed it enough to go back. How did you handle that experience and just managing those hours?
I think like I'm being a really big proponent of like well-being and having like a really good work-life balance, or even like school work and life balance. And before, yeah. I mean, like when I was really active on campus, hosting all these parties and events at the same time, studying my ass off to get into the finance major and stuff, and also working at the same time, this is way too much, and I had to kind of to take my foot off the gas a little bit. And I feel like this is something that all students, especially in the business world, should really pay attention to. It's like I always say in Finnish that, like lumberjacks, you really have to kind of take care of your gear, and you have a really good working posture when you're chopping down the trees. You can't kind of look beyond those things. Same thing with our thing. It's kind of the burnout is right around the corner if you're not careful enough. So it's kind of the sickness that is always kind of, I think, looming in the horizon if you're not paying attention. So I think it's super important to find a good balance in how much you actually can take on. Because if you're just being a yes man and doing all the work, they will give you all the work. So finding, enough courage, finding enough confidence in your work, so you don't have to kind of spend all the nights there going through the numbers again and again. You're confident enough that, okay, I did it well. I'm happy with the results. I can go home now. That's super important.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Also, I think it helps that the Finnish working culture again is super relaxed and non-hierarchical. So you can actually really get to know your managers, and they really pay attention to your personal life as well. So you can actually just be vocal if you have, I don't know, a basketball tournament coming up, or you're moving to a new apartment and you need some slack. They're kind of do their best to cater to those needs. And also, I think at BCG globally is really good kind of progress towards this model where you can actually have these targets weekly. So, okay, I want at least 2 dinners at home every week, or you want to exercise 3 times per week during the week. And the managers really cater to those kind of targets that you set yourself.
Yeah. And how was it? You said your project you worked on was in Sweden. How was it traveling every week? Did you enjoy it? Did it get kind of monotonous after a while? And also, what was it like just working internationally, even though Sweden is so close?
Yeah, I mean, like, it was really cool experience, because that's something that I've been looking forward to since I was a little kid, thinking, okay, I want to be in business. And now I got to experience, I had actually pretty international team where I had a couple of Germans, a German manager, an Italian guy, and then one guy from Sweden. And then I was kind of the sole Finnish guy there. It was really cool at first. I was like super excited the first time I was traveling there. I remember just being on the plane and I'm like, oh my goodness, okay, this is it then. But I think after the like fourth flight there, it started losing its charm a little bit. And now I understand better when a lot of the more senior consultants say that, okay, the travel is not probably so nice after all. Mm-hmm. I think I reckoned it after the 1 month of traveling.
Well, It's something cool that I think you can enjoy for a while, though. And
Yeah.
so you said you're going back there next year. Besides the fact that you're going to be with a lot of your friends, like you said, what are you most looking forward to about it? And are there any specific, I don't know if you get any choice in industry or specific areas that you consult in. Are you looking forward to a specific area?
Yeah, I think like I myself, the projects that I've done and what I've enjoyed the most are usually really kind of strategy heavy. So not me. Basically, I'm not like doing so much due diligences or doing not so many operational cases, but much more involved in kind of the core strategy work. And that's something that I'm really keen on doing also in the future. Of course, in Finland, there's only a handful of big companies able to use the services of the top consulting firms. So it might be that there's this really long relationships with the big companies, big industrial companies, and then there's all kinds of cases there. It's like you can choose either a function, country, or an industry. So I think it's something that it's like always people say that, okay, hey, you can choose the project, but it's not true.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. You don't
Yeah,
always have that much of a choice there.
yeah,
And so you're on to after BCG, you move on to your master's program. Is it a 1-year master's program and then you are done with school, or
no, it's
how
actually
does
a
it work?
2 years master's program. So I started doing my master's this year. I still have a couple of courses in the fall semester, and then I'm actually heading off to a new semester abroad in the spring of 2021. I'm going to Seoul, South Korea, which I'm really looking forward to.
That's incredible. I hope you can go. There's got to be a little doubt in being able to go, but I know
Yeah,
you
I mean,
said you
like,
guys aren't having as much issues as we're having right now.
yeah, fortunately, right now, the situation in Finland has been great since like mid-May. So I've like basically people have forgotten about Corona here during the summer, and everyone is just out enjoying the summer. We'll see. I think South Korea has been really good at suppressing all the infections that they have been. So I'm pretty confident that I'm able to make the trip to Seoul, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to hear about that. And why do you pick Seoul?
Yeah, I mean, like South Korea was one of the places that I didn't get to visit during our time in Hong Kong. I went to Tokyo. I like that, and a lot of people have been telling me that Seoul is like Tokyo 15 years ago. So it's kind of it still has its cool, little bit more not so developed side there that you can enjoy, and I really also like the ruggedness of Hong Kong. So I don't want to go to Singapore. I don't want to go to a place that posh. So I think Seoul is a good mixture of urban environment, a lot of good hikes there in South Korea, beautiful nature. But then also there's a little of the rugged sides of the city where you can go and just lose yourself for a weekend and find these cool places like we did in Hong Kong.
Mm-hmm. That'll be super cool.
Yeah, if you come and visit, I'll make sure to take you to the local Mr. Wong's there.
Oh, I'd love to. For people who don't know, Mr. Wong's is I don't know. You wanna describe
Iconic,
it? Just
iconic.
a iconic place in Hong Kong. Cheap beer and cheap food. Maybe some sort of money laundering scheme behind that place.
Ah, you never know. Maybe they're just cheap prices because I don't know. They get good catering deals.
Oh yeah, maybe. Okay, how about this? I mean, we're gonna get to your big sailing trip you just did, but you
Oh
worked
yeah,
at a state development company that's focused on digitization and climate action ventures.
yeah,
And you want to talk about how that experience came about and what you did there?
yeah. Definitely. This was like a really oddball. So after BCG, I decided, okay, I'm going back to school. I got the return offer, so now I can just chill. I don't have to work for the first time in during my studies, so I can just be a student for a while. So I did this for like 6 weeks. and then I felt like a bit bored, looking for something to do alongside my studies. I didn't end up having so many classes this semester, so I felt like, oh, well, I could do something like a freelancer gig or something like this. And luckily, this came about. So the Finnish government set up a plan to form this over 2 billion euro climate action fund. So they announced it in like March, and I had a friend working there who told me that they're actually like needing help with a new strategy and practically building a new fund and making a strategy around that. So from this tip, I got an interview there and actually got the position. It was only supposed to be a couple of weeks. So a couple of weeks of grunt strategy analyst work. But then luckily they liked me enough to offer an extension after that. So I ended up actually staying for 4 months. And it was amazing. I mean, like, I'm so glad to be able to see the foundation being built to a fund that size. And also the mission kind of hits me straight to the point, because I'm super excited about all the sustainability, all the climate action going on globally, and especially here in Finland, it's mostly technology driven. So we're a small country. Even if we just stopped living, it wouldn't make a difference in the climate impact. But we have a lot of cool technologies that are emerging that could actually have a global impact, and that's something that I believe really highly on. So being able to be finding this fund, which is actually just focused on exactly that, really promising new technology coming from Finland, it's super exciting, and super looking forward to it, seeing it actually kind of kick off, hopefully this year.
Yeah, that's super cool. And going back and looking over all the experience you had over the past few years, you've done consulting, you've done client facing, kind of more operational, back end, climate change, elevators, big companies, small companies. Like, you're going back to BCG, but beyond that, 10 years down the road, do you see any specific industries that you're really interested in and could see yourself spending kind of a good portion of your career in?
I think something that really kind of came up in Hong Kong when I had the time to kind of just stop and think. When you're in the other side of the world, you forget about all the things that you're supposed to do. You can focus on what you actually want to do and what you find meaningful. And I found all the kind of sustainability and the climate action matters super meaningful for myself. And that's something that I really want to be working on. I think the experience in a venture capital environment like the State Development Company, or that I was finding now the new fund there, I think that's something that super excites me. So if I'm able to work in an experience that I'm exposed to new technologies, which have a really kind of meaningful mission, that would be the dream. And I mean, like, also probably joining one of the companies. Hopefully there's a lot of potential next Nokias or Kones there. Like I could maybe then embark on their mission when they grow enough. That would be really cool. But I think working in consulting is really kind of building up the tool set, mm-hmm. and making me a more efficient executive one day, hopefully.
Yeah. And I also, I think being in Hong Kong was very eye-opening, and in Asia in general, in terms of just pollution. Like, obviously climate change is a huge issue and near and dear to my heart and a lot of people's core issues, but being there and seeing all the pollution in the ocean that's being shipped to Asia from all over the world, recycled from all over the world, it's really sad, and certainly a problem that needs to be solved. So you've talked a lot about kind of having a good well-being and work-life balance. You've done a lot in college. You said it's pretty common for people to do internships during their school years in Finland, but I think you've done more than the usual, it sounds like.
A bit more, yes.
What advice do you have for people on just balancing work and school and just all the different things going on in life, and how to not let it overwhelm you?
I feel like the mistake that a lot of people do, I've kind of heard this being asked from me as well here in Finland, is that why do you do all these things, and why are you being so active? And a lot of people think that I'm just like building a CV and making sure that I get the BCG job and all that. I haven't done any of those things because of that, and you shouldn't either. I mean, like, I'm a really curious person, and I say it's actually even my LinkedIn bio that curious people find lots of interesting things to do, and I really live by that. And I mean, do things that interest you and what we're actually passionate about. You don't have to kind of go to the investment club of your university just because it looks good in your CV. If you want to be in the, I don't know, arts and crafts clubs, do that. It's much better story to tell afterwards. And when you're always exposed to new things, you always get new ideas for the next ones. And I think it's a kind of never-ending cycle that I have embarked on now, that I just constantly seek for new experiences, and I think that's super valuable for everyone.
Yeah, that's really good advice. If you're always doing things you're interested in, you'll live a pretty enjoyable life. So you were just sailing for like 3+ weeks.
Yeah.
You have your own sailboat, it sounds like. Can you tell us about what just happened? How did this trip get planned?
Yeah, I mean, as a background information, it's nothing fancy. It doesn't even have a toilet, but we managed. And I mean, like, Finland actually has the highest amount of pleasure crafts per capita in the world.
Really?
So we're a really highly boating country, and I've seen sailing all around, but I've always sensed that it's a really kind of mythical thing that I could never do myself. But now in the business school, I've had friends who have had sailboats, and they have actually kind of taught me how to do it. So yeah, last year we ended up with a couple of friends, almost as a joke. We bought this old Finnish sailing boat from the 80s that we have now been using a lot, I could say. So it's been amazing. I mean, after working the whole day at the office, there's nothing better than just go to the boat. We have a marina right in the city center, so we can just hop on the boat after working, and just for a couple of hours you're off. I don't look at my phone. I just listen to music, chill with friends, have a beer or two.
Yeah,
it's been a life-changing kind of hobby that I've found, and it's definitely driving towards a better balance in my life as well. And yeah, and last summer we bought the boat, and we kind of dreamt about having a long holiday for the first time. We all have been working for all the summer holidays since we were like teenagers. So we really kind of dreamt about, okay, let's take July off and just go sailing. And that's exactly what we did. So we all managed to take July off from work. And on the 1st of July, we embarked on this journey of what ended up being 3 weeks of sailing the Finnish archipelago back and forth.
That's incredible. So you slept on the boat then, or?
Yeah. So our boat, we had like 4 people in my boat and like around 5 to 6 people on my friend's boat. And we had this 2-boat fleet going around. It's quite comfortable with 4 people. So I've actually slept there with 6. So 4 was generous. There was generous space then. But yeah, you get to see all these really beautiful islands there in the archipelago. All the marinas or the small harbors have like a sauna, maybe a small market. You know, buy some fresh groceries from. Super nice. Like, I would say that it's something between going to a cabin and hiking.
Yeah.
Some of the luxuries, but not all.
Yeah, I'm jealous. That sounds really incredible. Did you guys have any complications, any bad weather while you were sailing?
Well, I mean, the weather is always bad here, so that's nothing unusual. I mean, I, as a skipper, I'm super happy that no casualties were took on the trip. I think like the biggest human injury that we had was I cut my thumb with a tin can, so that wasn't anything too major.
Yeah.
Boat wise, I gotta say, a friend of mine who also is an owner on the boat is a really big dude, and him living in the boat for 3 weeks, oh man, things are, getting broken down. Mid journey, we stopped for a day, and I was just, fixing the stairs and fixing the cabinets that had just fallen off of, constant use.
Mm-hmm.
But we managed. I got them fixed, and I think even with the big storms that we had, our small cute boat really managed them well. And
Oh, that's good.
we actually enjoyed it. I mean, riding the storm in a sailboat is something really unique. You get the thrill of really adventurous moments when you're kind of actually catching some waves with a boat and you're surfing on the waves.
Sounds like an awesome trip. So you've mentioned saunas casually throughout this whole thing.
Oh, yeah.
And Finland's the birthplace of the sauna. It's, I think, really deeply ingrained in culture there. Do you want to talk about your life with saunas, but also just a little more just about well-being and kind of physically what you like to do to keep a good mental state and maybe habits you have around that?
Yeah, I mean, like for all people working in business, if you want to, you can just, hop on head first to your job and forget about everything else. But that's something that I wouldn't recommend doing.
Mm-hmm.
Life is too short to be lived on the weekends is something that we say a lot here. And also, yeah, weekends are always off in Finland. It's a really rare occasion if you have to work on weekends. I think consultants and bankers, maybe the lawyers are the only ones that actually work long hours. Most of the Finnish people only work around, 37 hours a week.
Okay.
So it's quite a little, I could say. People in here really enjoy the nature. Myself, I think it's one of the biggest things to just be on the coastline all the time. So Helsinki is a coastal city, especially having the boat there, just, seeing the sea, chilling. It's super important for me. A lot of my free time I spend with friends. So I'm a really big extrovert. I don't know if you noticed in Hong Kong, but
Mm-hmm.
I don't like being alone too much. I enjoy the time of other people and the company of other people much more than myself. So that's a big thing for me, to be able to see my friends often during lunches, dinners, and in the evenings. Also, one big benefit of everyone, living in Helsinki, working in Helsinki, as the central business district of Helsinki, it's just kind of the extension of the university after we graduate. So it's all the same faces walking there, and you can just catch up with your friends every day for lunch, even if you work in different companies.
Yeah, that sounds really nice.
And for saunas, I gotta say, if you don't have one, you should get one. It's like so ingrained in the Finnish culture that even though we're a shy people, people don't talk that much. But in the saunas, everyone is your friend. You go nude, you drink beer. We do everything in saunas. You can pre-game in saunas. You can have after parties in saunas. You can then go to sauna when you're hangover and kind of try to get over that. It's all linked to the saunas. So if you don't have one, get one.
All right, I gotta put like a sauna ad in here or something. I don't want to, this is a bit of a black hole. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but what are just like your general perceptions of the US?
Oh man, do we actually want to go in this?
Maybe. We'll see. I might delete it, but
you can just edit it out later. No, I mean, I think the perception of US has been relatively good me when I was growing up. So especially a lot of teenagers are looking up to the US, seeing all the movies and stuff. So the perception has been really good. I think now growing older, actually seeing the differences in the countries and the whole political systems, inequalities, all that, and especially now with the Trump administration, I think the image is pretty torn.
mm-hmm.
So a lot of people now are actually valuing the Finland and the Nordic style of living much more than they used to when growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So the voices of, oh, I want to move to the US, or oh, I'm so jealous of the US style of life, you hear them really seldom nowadays.
Yeah. Do you think that simply comes with age and you realizing the problems around the world and that have always existed in the US? Or do you think that's a pretty new thing that people have lost kind of the enamor of the US?
I think like the whole narrative about US has shifted a little bit. So as a small country in Finland, there's not many news to report domestically. So we'll actually really, I'm like we keep a really big attention to what's happening in the world. So I think myself, I read news like 3 hours every day, and that's mostly what's happening in the world. So I think nowadays people are really knowing and paying attention to what's happening everywhere. And I think the shift that has been in the narrative has been towards negative also in the Finnish media. So nowadays when Finnish newspapers report stuff happening in the US, it's not all that rosy that I think it used to be. So it's more than the problems and the issues that have been there are now kind of coming to light.
Yeah, that's kind of what I expected. Interesting, though, always to hear people's perspectives that don't live here. So now we've kind of gone through your whole story. I've got some rapid fire questions for you. All right. So what's been your favorite class in your university so far? I know you've got some left.
So far, it has to be the valuation class. It's kind of the, how do you say it, capstone course of my bachelor studies, which kind of combines everything that you have learned. So we actually take a company that is going to be listed, and me and my group of friends form a team, and we try to value that company. Super exciting. We spent 6 weeks on it. Super intense. That's the first time you get to work long hours, even before your consulting jobs. It's kind of this big thing that everyone is, telling these stories about for the freshmen. Oh, if you think this is tough, wait for the valuation
Just
course.
wait.
Yeah, definitely that one. Super exciting.
Mm-hmm. How about, I don't know if you listen to that many podcasts, but if you do, what are your favorite podcasts?
I really like to listen to these self-improvement podcasts, also really kind of wide variety of different business podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
I think one really high quality one that has been now up is the Harvard Business Review IdeaCast. I think it's also on Spotify. I think they have had really good stories there lately. But I like to listen to a lot of stuff, like ranging from, hey, you should take cold showers every morning, to how to apply Porter's 5 forces to the US politics.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I listen to so many different ones. How about favorite book or book you've read recently that you've really liked?
Dude, I think this is something that I'm a little bit ashamed of, that I'm not a big reader.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't read a lot. I think the last book that I listened to was during my exchange. It was this book about how Asia works. It's a bit boring, but it was interesting to actually hear how actually so similar countries develop in such a different way because of political choices down the road.
Huh, that's interesting. If you could go back to your first year at your university, do you have any advice that you'd give to yourself back then?
Yeah, I would say that you shouldn't pay that much attention to what other people are doing or saying or telling you to do. I would say that be more confident and find your path more, bravely.
Yeah. So do you have, I usually ask this question, do you have 3 people, dead or alive, that you would love to have dinner with?
Oh man, I gotta say, okay, if I'm kidding a little bit, I would say that I would want to include Elon Musk.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would definitely want the Finnish president, Sauli Niinistö, who's actually a great guy. I would want him there.
Mm-hmm.
And the third choice, oh man, someone from way, way behind. Let's say let's say some of the kind of Rockefeller founding fathers of the US economy, someone like that.
Okay, interesting.
And we wouldn't go to a dinner, we would go to sauna.
Okay. What's your best tip for making the world a better place?
Spend your energy on things that actually matter. Don't waste your time, stressing about the little things too much, but actually focus on the stuff that actually matters to you and to the world and our climate, of course.
Mm-hmm. That's good advice. Is there anything we haven't talked about that you want to still talk about?
I mean, I think we have covered most of the topics really well. I think something that I really want to highlight is the great importance of well-being. I mean, it's a topic that I'm really keen on bringing up here in Finland, in our school. I'm really kind of talking a lot about it to younger students. But it's something that I think globally is not kind of, people don't pay attention to it enough.
Yeah.
It's just like you take it as a norm to work too much easily, especially when you're kind of surrounded by really high performing, driven individuals. It's really easy to get lost in all that. So I think pay attention to your well-being, listen to yourself, and do the choices that actually make you feel good, not the ones that are expected of you, I think.
Yeah, that's good advice and something everyone should take to heart, and a great way to end the interview. So thank you, Olli, for coming on.
Thanks a lot, Wally.
Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed. I'll be releasing a new episode each week, so please subscribe and rate the podcast. It's really helpful for me as I try to expand to more listeners. I'd also love to hear any feedback or questions you may have. My email is in the About section of the podcast. I'm Wally Estenson, and you've been listening to the Wally Pod.